Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. We hope you are doing great. Trump courts Christian vote and says God saved me for a purpose. Okay, so let's break down this situation in a way that's easier to understand and a bit more conversational. We're talking about Donald Trump and his strong appeal to Christian voters, especially as we approach the 2024 election. It's pretty clear that he's really trying to frame himself as a protector of religious freedoms, particularly for Christians, right? I mean, this isn't the first time he's done it, but now he's really doubling down, especially in light of the possibility of a Kamala Harris administration. So yeah, Trump is telling Christian voters that if they don't show up to vote, they could face real threats to their religious freedoms. He's painting a picture where the stakes are incredibly high. He wants people to believe that under Harris, things like religious liberty might be restricted. This came out during a special event in North Carolina, which was labeled as an 11th hour faith leaders meeting, an event designed to rally Christian leaders right before the election. Now, before Trump took the stage, several conservative pastors warmed up the crowd. One of the most prominent was Guillermo Maldonado, a longtime ally of Trump. He didn't mince words. He described the current situation in terms of spiritual warfare, which is a term many Christian conservatives use. You see, Maldonado wasn't just talking about the usual political back and forth between left and right. No, he went deeper. He made it about good versus evil, framing the political moment as a battle not just on earth, but on a supernatural level. I see he's talking about a spiritual fight for the soul of America, and that's a pretty intense way to frame it. After that, Ben Carson, who's serving as Trump's national faith chairman for the 2024 campaign, took the stage. He echoed a similar sentiment. Carson flat out rejected the notion of a secular society. Hey Shem, you get what I mean? He was making it clear that this election for many in the Christian community is about more than just politics. It's about the nation's very identity. Are we a secular nation? Or are we one nation under God? It's the kind of rhetoric that really appeals to Christian nationalists, people who believe the US was founded as a Christian nation and should remain that way. And then Trump himself finally stepped up to speak. He started off by recalling a personal experience that he framed in spiritual terms. Apparently, there was an assassination attempt on him during a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. Trump claimed that God saved him that day, and this experience deepened his faith. I see he's saying that God has a purpose for him to make America greater than ever before. Yeah, it's a familiar theme for Trump, this idea that he's a chosen one of sorts, almost like he's on a divine mission. But then he turned to something practical: voting. He pointed out that Christians and gun owners, in his view, don't vote in the numbers they should. Trump was urging these groups to make their voices heard in the 2024 election. And he's right about one thing: voter turnout among evangelical Christians has been a key factor in his previous victories. So yeah, this was him telling them, you need to show up, or else. And then he made a big promise, one that Christian conservatives have heard from him before, to roll back the Johnson Amendment. That's the rule that prevents churches and other non-profits from endorsing political candidates. Trump has been after this amendment for a while, and he's promising to get rid of it within the first week of his next term if he's elected. Now, something that really stood out during this speech was Trump's focus on his decision to move the U.S. embassy in Israel to Jerusalem. A lot of world leaders condemned that decision, saying it would stir up tensions between Israel and Palestine. But for Trump, and for many evangelical Christians, it was a key move. You see, for a lot of Christian conservatives, Israel holds deep religious significance, especially when it comes to prophecies about the end times. Yeah, they believe supporting Israel is crucial, so Trump touting this decision plays really well with his base. And then, of course, Trump took a swipe at gender-affirming healthcare for trans people. He promised to take historic action to defeat what he called the toxic poison of gender ideology, asserting that God created only two genders, male and female. It's another issue where Trump aligns closely with Christian conservatives, many of whom believe that transgender identities conflict with their religious beliefs. Earlier that day, Trump's son Eric was also out there, doing his part to rally the base. He appeared on a podcast called Prophets Patriots, which is run by a group that represents a very specific part of the Christian right, people who believe in modern-day prophets and who often tie their faith to political outcomes. Eric Trump echoed a lot of the same themes his father would later discuss. He claimed there's a war against God in this country, starting with the Obama administration and continuing under the Biden-Harris administration. Eric said that no president has defended religious liberty as strongly as his father has. In fact, Eric went even further than that, saying that the hand of God is on Donald Trump's shoulder and that an angel saved his father from the assassination attempt. It's interesting, right? They're really leaning into the religious imagery and trying to position Trump as someone who is almost divinely protected. Now, something else that's worth noting is the involvement of Clay Clark, an Oklahoma entrepreneur who co-founded the Reawaken America tour. Yeah, this tour is essentially a traveling roadshow of pro-Trump conspiracy theorists and charismatic Christian preachers. People on the tour are really into the idea of modern-day prophets and apostles, which is a big part of the New Apostolic Reformation. This movement has been gaining influence on the Christian right, and it's closely aligned with Trump's faith coalition. Eric Trump gave Clark a lot of credit for organizing the North Carolina event, and he's not wrong. Clark has been instrumental in pulling these kinds of events together. The Reawaken America tour is a big deal for a lot of people in the Christian nationalist movement, and it features some pretty prominent figures. For example, Lance Wallnau, a guy who's openly said that the US is heading towards civil war and has accused Kamala Harris of practicing witchcraft. Yeah, this is the kind of rhetoric that plays well with a certain segment of Trump's base, but it's also risky. Associating with figures like Wallnau could alienate more moderate voters, even though it fires up the core supporters. Last month, J.D. Vance, a Republican senator from Ohio, even appeared at one of Wallnau's events. The fact that mainstream politicians are attending these rallies shows just how influential this movement has become within the Republican Party. It's a gamble for sure, but it also highlights the growing divide between Trump's most fervent supporters and those who might find this kind of rhetoric off-putting. So yeah, the big takeaway from all of this is that Trump is leaning hard into his appeal to Christian voters. He's framing the 2024 election as a battle for the soul of the nation, using spiritual language to make his case. Whether this strategy will pay off remains to be seen, but for now it's clear that Trump is banking on the idea that religious voters, particularly Christians, will turn out in force to support him.
Thanks for watching our video. Please hit the bell icon and subscribe the channel. Thank you.